Hello RPG fans and welcome to the world. The dothack series is a 7-part video game series for the PlayStation 2 that is separated into 2 eras, if you will. The first 4 games made a massive impact on the PS2 era, and then the 3 games that further came out include the dothack GU series, which is a continuance of the dothack series from the first 4 games, with some of the story bleeding over into GU, but you do not have to play the first 4 games to enjoy the GU series, although it certainly would be recommended if you were to get the full story experience. It certainly would be nice if the first 4 dothack games were available on Steam as a port, but as of right now, only the dothack GU series, which includes 3 games plus 1 DLC, is available. So let's jump into it. Can you beat dothack GU Vol1 Rebirth using only party members' damage? Dothack is one of those games in series that, depending on how much damage you do and damage you take, is really dependent on what level you are. So we're going to have to stay under-leveled for the most part throughout this game to really make it challenging, which leads us into the rules. Haseo cannot deal any damage. You must be on normal mode. No using alchemy on equipped weapons or armor. No over-leveling. No buying weapons, armor, or recovery items from shops. Force interactions, tutorials, and solo battles do not break the rules. No glitches, exploits, hacks, mods, free or paid DLC, if any. And the victory condition is to beat the final storyline boss. So with those rules, I would like to clarify a couple things. With the no using alchemy on equipped weapons and armor, alchemy is essentially a way of enhancing the gear to do more damage or have more defense. So all the gear and weapons that we're using is going to be +0 essentially, and the max is +5. With no buying weapons, armor, or recovery items from shops, this means that our only option to get better gear is from the dungeons or fields themselves, as well as trading with other NPCs. And to help prevent over-leveling, I'm not going to do any of the optional side quests. If you are not familiar with the backstory of the dothack series, the world is the video game that people buy, and they buy essentially a VR headset, and when they put it on, it materializes their consciousness into the game, where they can create a character and do all the things that VR would do nowadays, except without a controller. So that's pretty cool. And at a very high level storyline wise, there's a data corruption bug that goes around and can cause people to become comatose. Now, this might sound a little bit familiar if you are an anime fan. In the modern day, for us, people would be like, oh, I remember this idea. That's from Sword Art Online. Well, dothack did it first. So, yeah. And now that I think about it, if I recall, there was a game or a book or an anime that pitched this idea before dothack. I don't quite remember it, but I'm sure one of you can let me know in the comments what it is. When logging into the world for the very first time, Haseo encounters 2 people who are offering to help him out and teach him the game as well as learn how to play. So we take them up on their offer, and we end up going to a zone of their choosing where they teach us how to attack, how to use skills, the basics of the game. Depending on which zone we go to depends on what the objective we need to do there is. So, for example, in this zone, we need to gather all of the key fragments to unlock the door to the Beast Temple. Once we gather all the keys, we will go ahead and proceed to the Beast Temple and collect the treasure at the end. But before we do, the 2 people that were teaching us how to play the game are actually PKers. And so while our reward lies in the chest, their reward relies in PKing Haseo. And they do just that. Pretty awesome experience for our first time in the world, right?
Welcome to the world.
After 8 months of playing in the world, Haseo has become known as the Terror of Death, the most famous PKK or player killer that there is in the world. And also during this time, Haseo's friend Shino has become comatose from getting PK'd by a player known as Tri-Edge. When Haseo returns to town, he runs into 2 members from the guild Moontree. One of them being an officer known as Sakaki, and the other one just a regular member known as Adelie. The conversation is cut short when Haseo receives a text message and wasn't sure who it's from, so he goes to the field and investigates, and turns out that Vol1 is the one who sent the message. Vol1 informs Haseo that Tri-Edge is on his way to the original scene of the crime, which is where Shino ended up getting PK'd. A pretty cool cinematic plays out where Haseo encounters Tri-Edge and they start fighting, but unfortunately Haseo is no match for Tri-Edge, and Tri-Edge data drains Haseo, resetting his entire character, all of his attributes, his gear, items, everything back to level 1. Some deja vu occurs as he warps in. He is level 1 and he encounters 2 people who are willing to help him out again. These 2 people are Syllabus and Gaspard, who are actually good guys this time. So we head into the dungeon of their choosing, and remember, Haseo can't do any damage, so this actually takes us a little bit to get through the first dungeon here by only having them do all the damage, but we eventually get through it. Towards the end, when it comes time to collect the bee statue, we get ganked by Bordeaux and gang. Bordeaux recognizes the famed terror of death, and Gaspard and Syllabus can't quite believe it since I'm only level 1 or so still. Haseo's kind of freaking out a little bit because he knows that he can't beat them with his current level and gear, but we get rescued by a future party member known as Pi. Pi's class is a tribal grappler, which essentially is fist weapons. So, as anyone who's watched the previous playthroughs of mine, I've mentioned time and time again that fist weapon type classes are my favorite. Pi mentions that Haseo's character is hiding something, a pretty big and dangerous power inside of him, so more to come on that later. We log out, check our email, and Gaspard and Syllabus invite us to join them on a quest to find a King Chim Chim. So we go ahead and go to the quest shop, pick up the quest, and then we'll go ahead and teleport to the field where we will find the King Chim Chim and kick him to death. Once that's done, we go ahead and proceed to town, turn in the quest, and this is where we will start trading with other NPCs for recovery items and gear if necessary. Throughout this playthrough, probably the biggest core ingredient that we are going to be needing from a recovery item standpoint are the sprite drops. When used, the sprite drop restores 50 SP, or MP in other words, so this is going to be pretty important to keep on ourselves since we are going to be acting as the main healer. We do also have recovery items that allow us to restore hit points, but for the main purposes of this, the sprite drops are mainly going to be used for our magic caster. Instead of them healing, we are actually going to set their battle tactics to rage, which means that they will continuously attack the enemy without regards of MP or SP consumption. So right off the bat, I start trying to find someone who has a attack scroll, since Adelie is supposed to be a harvest cleric or a support and heal type character. By default, she has no attack spells. So the first thing I do is get an attack spell and make her learn it, because she is going to be my damage dealer and I'll be the healer. After clearing the zone that Adelie wanted to go to, she mentions that she starts to hear something. So she leads us to the backside of the beast statue building where we find a Tri-Edge mark. We are then warped underground to a beautiful looking area where we have our first encounter with Endrance. An awesome cutscene plays out and Adelie gets attacked by the bug that corrupts everything, known as Ida, if you will. Before Ida can fully attack Adelie, we get introduced to Kuhn, who steps in and uses his avatar to defeat the Ida. Haseo's not really sure what to make of Kuhn's power, but Kuhn invites us to talk to him as well as his superior in their guild hall known as Raven.
You're the old hag from the other day!
We are then introduced to Yada, who is the leader of the Project GU. Project GU's purpose is to investigate the Ida phenomenon as well as the Lost Ones, which are the people who became comatose. Yada explains that there's only so much information that can be gotten from the system logs, so when Tri-Edge appeared at the Grand's Cathedral, there was no record of him using the warp point to get into the zone as well as getting out of the zone. The task that's been given to us by Yada is to learn how to summon or awaken our avatar, which is the same avatar that Haseo saw Kuhn use. And the only people who can see avatars are other people with avatars. Pi and Kuhn are then invited to the party so we can go on an adventure to try and awaken Haseo's avatar. We clear the zone and it doesn't go too well because Haseo still isn't able to summon his avatar.
Maybe the problem's your lack of talent.
Couldn't have said it better myself, so we go ahead and exit the zone and log out and check our email. We get an email from CC Corp saying that the Lumina Cloth server is finished with the maintenance and is now accessible, so we go ahead and check it out. We encounter Syllabus and Gaspard on the Lumina Cloth server, and they've come to watch Endurance defend his title match in the Demon Palace. When watching the match, Haseo realizes that Endurance has been using his avatar on players, and no one else can see it other than the avatar users. So Haseo now has a new goal to take down the current Emperor Endurance, and in order to do that, we need to climb the arena rankings, which requires a party of 3 people. Syllabus already agrees to join us, but Gaspard is too scared to do anything. Syllabus suggests that a third person as a healer would be a pretty good idea, so Haseo naturally reaches out to Adelie and invites her along to do some leveling up. And it's kind of funny because when Adelie joins the party and then we teleport into the dungeon, she says, "Hey, I bought all these items to maybe help us," but it's smoke screens and return feathers, which are anti-battle type items.
Oh, it's adorable!
We clear the field, we do some more trading, and we are always going to be trading for those sprite drops every time we exit out of a dungeon for the most part. I do another random dungeon with Adelie to gain a little bit more experience, and then when I head back to town, I finally find an NPC that has the Priest Scroll, which allows a character to be taught Rebirth, which is the level 1 healing ability. So this is going to be really important for Haseo as a healer. On the next storyline field with Adelie, towards the end, Haseo pretty much nerd rages at her. The best way to describe it is like a hardcore elitist meme type player completely picking on a casual person who's playing an MMO for the first time, and Adelie doesn't take it too well. So with Haseo losing his temper, he wasn't able to recruit Adelie to join the team for the arena party, so Syllabus takes to the forums to try and recruit a Harvest Cleric. Syllabus gets a response from a user named Sakura that tells us to meet her at the very end of the Beast Temple in an area. Once we get there, we get ganked by Bordeaux and gang. However, Adelie tells Sakaki that we are in trouble and Sakaki comes to our rescue. And thus Adelie joins the party as our healer. And now the first round of the tournament is going to begin, so we head over to Lumina Cloth and we register our party. And this is where I was referring to the no over leveling part of the playthrough. So our first opponents are level 10 and we are level 8 going into this fight. Now it is extremely easy to overcome these fights just by being a higher level than your opponents. So we're not going to exceed the level that they are at. In these arena battles, the match will be concluded when either all 3 of the enemies fall or the party leader falls. So it is, at the end of the day, just going to be RNG if Syllabus and Adelie decide to target the leader, but we can try and manipulate that a little bit. So normally if we get really close to an enemy and just kind of move around them, they'll usually target Haseo, and we can start to move ever so slightly over to another member to where when Adelie or Syllabus attacks, they'll attack both players instead of one. Now again, this is kind of random, but it is something that can help for the future fights. After the arena match, we're kind of in an intermission area where this is a really good opportunity to take Adelie and Syllabus and do some more leveling up before our next arena match. The next step in the story is to raise our arena rank up to the top 16, so this can be done with either survival battle or limit battle. Survival battles is basically a chain of battles that you get more and more ranking points for every match that you beat. And then limit battles is you get to choose your opponent. So at the start, we're going to go ahead and do survival battles, and then towards the end, we will do limit battles. When we're at a high enough rank, we'll get an email from the CC Corporation telling us that we're eligible to enter in the tournament, so we'll go ahead and register. Upon heading over to the main server Makanu, Kuhn greets us and says that he's worried about Gaspard since he's been keeping quiet, so we go in and check on him. And Gaspard and Syllabus tell us that they've been getting bullied by PKers because they are in the Canard Guild. Not standing for it, Kuhn decides to go ahead and talk to Kestrel, which is the PK Guild, and Haseo decides to tag along. Bordeaux and Haseo come to an arrangement that if Haseo can beat Bordeaux in the tournament, then they will back off the Canard members. So naturally, Haseo takes him up on the offer, and it's time to level again. We get an email from CC Corp saying that the job extension class quest is now available, so we go ahead and pick it up. We can avoid most, if not all, of the enemies just by running to the outside of the room to the next area. If we do get into a battle, we can use a smoke screen, so no big deal. Towards the very end, we loot the Beast Temple treasure, and then we get our next class upgrade. This class upgrade allows us to use the big two-handed broadsword, so now we have 2 weapons available. We've got the daggers as well as the broadsword. It doesn't really mean anything, it just means that we can have a broadsword equipped that doesn't do anything since we're not attacking with it, but it looks cool though. And this is where the difficulty really starts to ramp up. So because the Canard members have been getting bullied, Syllabus doesn't feel like participating in the arena with us, so it's just Adelie and Haseo. And as you know, since we're not doing any damage, this entire 2v3 is fully reliant on Adelie. So she's going to be doing all of our damage, and it is RNG a little bit as to what character she's targeting. So this takes us several attempts. Our first attempt, Haseo's level 23 and Adelie is 22 versus 27, 26, and 25. Our very first attempt goes horribly poor. They have a lot of levels on us, and not to mention, we only have 1 damage dealer. So because all 3 of them are melee, it's extremely difficult to try and get all 3 of them stacked up on Haseo. They have a tendency to put 2 attacking people on Adelie and 1 on Haseo. And another issue with trying to group them all up is if 2 of them are attacking Adelie, that means I have to be near Adelie as well. So all 3 of them have a very high chance at cleaving both of us down at the same time. And needless to say, this fight doesn't go very well at all. I was very quick to understand that this fight is not doable at our current level. So thankfully, I staggered my save points again. Otherwise, this would have been a complete game over. So we reload a previous save to where we have Adelie in our party, and we go ahead and level up some more. I return at level 27, and the RNG was really bad on this first fight. They game overed us pretty quickly. I retry the fight, and we're making a lot more progress now, but we still got another game over. I re-go through my gear on customizing the armor pieces to add minus 10% physical damage received in hopes that this would help us for the fight. We got another game over, but I can definitely tell that surviving longer with the minus 10% physical damage reduction was helping out. 5 attempts later, we finally get the fight down, and once Bordeaux reaches 50% HP is when the fight is essentially over. And if I recall correctly, on one of the previous fights, she was at 323 HP, so 1 HP off. And in the fight that we actually won, Adelie took care of the other 2 party members and then Bordeaux. So it kind of shows you how long the fight was, as well as how much damage they were actually doing, because that was a really long fight for us to try and stay alive. For storyline purposes, when Bordeaux's at 50%, Haseo's on the verge of losing or giving up on the fight, and that's when he's able to summon his avatar Scathe, and we win the match. Even though Adelie was clearly the MVP, able to solo everyone. Kuhn and Pi are absolutely livid that we used an avatar in the arena matches, since the avatars is what can cause people to go comatose as well. We return to the guild hall where Syllabus and Gaspard are extremely happy and Canard is no longer being bullied, so this means that Gaspard can go back to his shop selling stuff. Yay, money! We do some more trading with NPCs to try and recover our sprite drop supply, since this is still heavily used throughout this playthrough. We get an email from Yada saying that he wants to see us and show us something, and he shows us a clip of Tri-Edge PKing some players, and mentions that there's no warp record for him going in and out of the field through the warp gate. Interesting. He might be a hacker. Yada gave us our next objective, so we go ahead and go to an area with Pi to investigate some Ida readings. And this is a zone to where we can hone our skills with our avatar, as the avatar is the only thing that's able to defeat Ida. And to defeat them, we need to whittle them down to 0 and then use data drain. At the end of the dungeon, when we're about to collect the treasure, the Ida is going to attack Zelkoba, which is Moontree's guildmaster, and Pi jumps in the way. The fight isn't particularly hard and really nothing to mention other than just get Tarvos down to 0 HP and then we use data drain to save Pi. When leaving the dungeon, we get an email from Adelie saying that Moontree's higher ups would like a word with Pi and Haseo. So we nervously join Adelie and go over to Moontree's guild, and we are introduced to Zelkova, the leader of Moontree, as well as 3 of the 7 officers. Pi and Haseo talk via most likely short message, and Pi says that the guild pretty much only listens to Sakaki right now and that he's trying to take over the guild. Our next arena fight is level 33 against Matsu, which is one of the Moontree's officers, and we have a lot of leveling up to do right now. So we go ahead and boost up to level 32, level 30 for Syllabus, and level 32 for Adelie. I'm thinking that this might be much easier than it was to face Bordeaux because now we have Syllabus back in our group, so that's another damage dealer. I run forward and guard, trying to get all 3 of them to attack me first off, and Adelie launches a girthy 3-man attack, and then Syllabus follows up by being able to attack 2 people at the same time as well. Since they are all melee, I do try and stack them up as close to Syllabus as I can. If any of them at any point ever go after Adelie, I will try and go and stack on Adelie and try and get the enemy AI to target Haseo and then try and group them up again. With Adelie's damage output right now, she and Syllabus quickly whittle down Matsu to 50% HP, which forces a cinematic. And in Matsu's past life, he was a famous PKer, and he had a broadsword known as the Flame Sword that he used for all of his PKing kills. So he pulls that out and tells us that he's not going to go easy anymore. I probably should have tried this fight at 1 to 2 levels lower, but it is what it is. This fight isn't hard at all because there's no magic casters and there's no Harvest Cleric for them to heal each other. After the fight, Matsu gives us his flame sword, and we get an email from Pyros III mentioning that there's been a tri-edge sign found in Delta Hidden Forbidden Bulwark. Haseo doesn't really see anything abnormal, so we go ahead and leave the area, and it is now time for our next tournament fight. This time it is going to be against Alcade, which is an extremely difficult fight. And I think most people agree that Alcade is one of the coolest, if not the coolest people in this entire series. Alcade and her team wiped the floor with us several times, so I decided it's time to stop and go and level up. So we end up leveling up to match her level, which I believe is level 32. I check everyone's gear to make sure that we've got the physical damage minus 10% on everyone, and then we go ahead and proceed into the fight. This fight, just like other fights, the battle is over once Alcade reaches 50% HP. And just like the previous fights, when Alcade reaches 50%, Haseo is on the verge of losing, and then he summons his avatar to wipe the floor with Alcade. And Alcade is definitely pretty aggravated. We go back to leveling up to level 39 to prepare for our next tournament fight, which is going to be against Kuhn, Pi, and Antares. This fight wasn't relatively hard because we have a Harvest Cleric and they don't, so any of the damage that we deal for the most part is permanent. Antares and Pi do occasionally heal everyone for 50 HP, which isn't that big of a deal at all. Our first attempt on this fight, we got pretty much destroyed. They focused Adelie, and Adelie went down within like 30 seconds. And then from there, I didn't have really any way to heal myself. So in these PvP arena battles, whenever you heal someone with Rept, it's supposed to heal them for 100, but in the arena, it's halved, so it's only 50 HP. They do a really good job at just owning our entire team. I dropped to 118 health at one point with everyone else not too far behind me, but thankfully the RNG was on our side this time and we were able to get Kuhn to 50% HP. And so, you guessed it, we go ahead and go into our avatar form, and so does Kuhn. Haseo's avatar loses control and starts going berserk while Haseo's watching the entire thing of Skaith completely beating up Kuhn, and he starts freaking out. Skaith uses Data Drain to end the fight, and Haseo's extremely worried that now Kuhn's become a lost one. But instead of that, Kuhn is just slow to get up, and then that's when Pi realizes what Kuhn's strategy was to make Haseo fully realize exactly how dangerous the avatars are. Haseo fully understands now, so we log out and we check our email, and then we get an invite to visit Kuhn and Pi in the Raven Guild Hall. After some further discussion, we go ahead and talk to Yada, and he tells us that Kuhn's assignment in the tournament was to fight Endrance with the Avatar. So now that we've beaten Kuhn out of the tournament, it is now our responsibility to go into the finals against Endrance and beat him with our Avatar. Haseo gladly accepts, since this is online with what he was going to do anyway. The next tournament fight is against Endurance, but he is level 45, and we are definitely not anywhere near that right now, so we go ahead and level up to level 42, and then if we can't beat him then we'll just continue to do one level up at a time. So as you might expect, this is a 3v1, and the fight isn't necessarily that hard, although Endurance does hit pretty damn hard. And he also activates like an evasion type ability to where he evades all physical incoming attacks, which isn't really a problem for Haseo, but it is for Syllabus. So it's kind of like half the time we're not even able to damage Endurance, but the time that we do have to DPS him, Syllabus and Adderley are really good at doing that. We try and stay near Endurance to try and get the enemy AI to target Haseo while we're guarding, and it works out pretty well. While we're busy getting Endurance to 50% HP, he does a pretty good job at doing the exact same thing to our party, but once again at 50%, we'll begin the Avatar versus Avatar fight. Skaith versus Matcha isn't particularly hard either, although Matcha can do quite a bit of damage in a short amount of time. So if this is your first time fighting it, what I would suggest is just stay back and evade things, and you'll start to understand what the attacks look like from Matcha, and you'll be much better off on trying to evade all of them. Following the fight, we get an email saying that there's going to be a ceremony for us becoming Emperor, so we'll go ahead and head over to Makanu and then go to the harbor where we'll take the boat over to the ceremony. After the cutscenes and dialogue, we go ahead and leave the ceremony, and then we check our email and we get asked to meet Yada in the Raven HQ, so we do just that.
She is another Epitaph user candidate that we found, just like you.
What?
Plot twist, Adderley's a candidate for an Epitaph user, and this would help explain why she's able to hear things that others can't. He tells us that Adderley went to Delta Hidden Forbidden Bulwark, and at this point, she would have no knowledge of this place, so she had to get her information from somewhere, and it turns out it was Sakaki. So in a race against time, Haseo, Pai, and Kuhn get together, and we go to Hidden Forbidden Bulwark to try and rescue Adderley in whatever danger she's in. And this is the final zone of the game storyline-wise, so if you want to prepare any further, go ahead. The max level for the first chapter is level 50. However, we are going to go in at our existing level 42, as we don't want to over-level at all. right here, that all of the lost ones will